What is up, Zalger here. Today we're diving into the Enmerkar Forest in Outward Definitive Edition. The Enmerkar Forest is often the second place players go to after exploring the Chersonese, the starting region. This region is packed with a variety of enemies, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Whether you're a seasoned adventurer or new to the game, this guide will help you understand what you're up against. So, let's jump right in. First up, we've got the Bandits. These guys are fairly common, and different variants can be found primarily roaming the Enmerkar Forest and or the Ancestors' resting place. Occasionally you'll be able to find the Marsh Bandit variants, but they are very rare and usually found during certain quests. Bandits are found in the Enmerkar Forest open world and Ancestors' resting place. They are mildly protected from physical attacks with a resistance of 15. However, they are vulnerable to decay damage with a resistance of -40, making decay-based attacks particularly effective against them. Bandit archers are also found in the Enmerkar Forest open world and Ancestors' resting place. Bandit archers are slightly tougher with a physical resistance of 16. They share the same significant decay vulnerability of -40. If you are facing one of these, decay damage is your best bet. Bandit lieutenants can be encountered in the Enmerkar Forest open world and Ancestors' resting place. The Bandit Lieutenant is tougher all around with notable resistances to physical, fire, frost, lightning, and ethereal damage, each at 20. Despite these defenses, they are susceptible to decay, with a resistance of -20. The Bandit Manhunter found in the Enmerkar Forest open world is a formidable opponent with high resistances across the board, with 63 to physical and 60 each to fire, frost, lightning, and ethereal. They do not have any specific weaknesses, although they have a relative weakness to decay with a resistance of 20. So prepare for a tough fight. Bandit slaves are located in Ancestors' resting place. Bandit slaves have a very low physical resistance of just 4, making them quite fragile. They are vulnerable to decay damage with a resistance of -35. The Desert Captain is found in Ancestors' resting place. This enemy has high resistances in every element including decay. They have no notable weaknesses. Ice witches, found in the Enmerkar Forest open world and Ancestors' resting place, are particularly resistant to frost, boasting a resistance of 80, and have a physical resistance of 10. However, they are vulnerable to decay and fire, with resistances of -40 each. Found in Burg Necropolis and occasionally the Burnt Outpost, Marsh Bandits have balanced resistances, 37 to physical and 20 each to fire, frost, lightning, and ethereal, with a decay resistance of 50. They do not have any particular weaknesses. Encountered sometimes at the Burnt Outpost, Marsh Captains are more robust than their lower tier counterparts. They have resistances of 61 to physical, 40 each to fire, frost, lightning, and ethereal, with a slightly decreased resistance to decay at 45. They also do not have any notable weaknesses. Now, let's explore the wildlife of the Enmerkar Forest. These creatures range from the mystical to the menacing. Found roaming the Enmerkar Forest open world, the Alpha Coralhorn is mildly resilient to physical attacks with a resistance of 15, and has a more impressive frost resistance of 40. It is, however, weak to fire, with a resistance of -40. Assassin bugs can be found in Ancestors' resting place, forest hives, and tree husk. With a physical resistance of 20, the assassin bug is somewhat tough, but has a vulnerability to frost with a -40 resistance. Coral horns are commonly found in Enmerkar Forest open world, accompanying an alpha coral horn. Coral horns have a similar resistance compared to the alpha counterparts, with a resistance to frost at 40 and a fire resistance of -40. Armored hyenas are located in the Enmerkar Forest open world and Ancestors' resting place. They have a physical resistance of 20 but are weak to both fire and lightning, with a resistance of -40 each. The Mana Mantis can be found in Ancestors' resting place. It has a physical resistance of 25 and an ethereal resistance of 40. However, it is vulnerable to frost with a resistance of -40. Found in the Enmerkar Forest open world, the Mantis Shrimp boasts a physical resistance of 20 and a lightning resistance of 40. However, it is weak to both frost and decay, each with a resistance of -40. The Manticore resides in the Royal Manticore's lair. It has a physical resistance of 20 and it is vulnerable to fire with a resistance of -40. The Rock Mantis can be found in Ancestors' resting place. With a solid physical resistance of 30, the Rock Mantis is notably weak to frost with a resistance of -40. Next, we delve into the subterranean realm of the Troglodytes, found primarily in the Royal Manticore's lair. Generally, these guys are strong against decay and weak to lightning. The Armored Troglodyte has a physical resistance of 20 and a decay resistance of 40. Its main weakness is lightning, with a resistance of -40. Troglodytes are primarily resistant to decay with a resistance of 40. Lightning is their Achilles heel as they are weak to it with a resistance of -40. Sharing the same decay resistance of 40, the Troglodyte Grenadier also has a weakness to lightning with a resistance of -40. The Troglodyte Knight features a physical resistance of 35 and a decay resistance of 40. Like the others, it is vulnerable to lightning with a resistance of -40. Elementals represent the raw force of nature. Each type has their own unique resistances and vulnerabilities. You'll encounter them in various locations across the Enmerkar Forest. The Ethereal Arcane Elemental can be found in Dolmen Crypt. This elemental has a physical resistance of 10 and a lightning resistance of 40. It does not have any particular weaknesses. The Fire Arcane Elemental can be encountered in the Face of the Ancients. This elemental features a physical resistance of 10 and a strong lightning resistance of 40. It lacks notable weaknesses. The Frost Arcane Elemental can be found in the Royal Manticore's lair in the Face of the Ancients. Featuring a physical resistance of 10 and a lightning resistance of 40, this elemental similarly lacks specific weaknesses. The Burning Man roams the Enmerkar Forest open world, Face of the Ancients, and Enmerkar Vigil Pylon. It is incredibly resistant to fire with a resistance of 100, but is vulnerable to frost with a resistance of -40. Obsidian elementals can be found in the Enmerkar Forest open world, Face of the Ancients, and Enmerkar Vigil Pylon. This elemental has a physical resistance of 20 and an exceptionally high fire resistance of 100. Its major vulnerability is frost with a resistance of -40. The Undead in Enmerkar Forest are both eerie and formidable. They are tough to defeat, but they do have critical weaknesses. You'll encounter them in various parts of the forest. Purple ghosts haunt the Enmerkar Forest open world, Dolmen Crypt, and Face of the Ancients. They are highly resistant to physical attacks with a resistance of 80, but are extremely weak to ethereal damage with a resistance of -100. Red ghosts can be found in the Enmerkar Forest open world, Necropolis, and Ancestors' Resting Place. Red ghosts share the same strengths and weaknesses as their purple counterparts. Physical resistance of 80 and ethereal weakness of -100. The Red Lady is a special variant found in the Enmerkar Vigil Pylon. Like the other ghosts, she is highly resistant to physical attacks with a resistance of 80 and is vulnerable to ethereal damage with a resistance of -100. A single giant resides in the Enmerkar Forest. The Ash Giant roams the Enmerkar Forest open world. It has a physical resistance of 10 but is weak to frost with a resistance of -40. The Golems of Enmerkar are powerful with tough defenses, but they aren't without their weaknesses. Found in the Enmerkar Forest open world and Tree Husk, these golems have a physical resistance of 30, but they are weak to ethereal damage with a resistance of -40. Located in Enmerkar Vigil Pylon, Molten Forge golems have a physical resistance of 30 and strong resistances to fire and decay both at 40. However, they are also vulnerable to ethereal damage with a resistance of -40. The Hive enemies are dangerous in groups, but they have exploitable weaknesses. Found in the Enmerkar Forest open world, Forest Hives, and Hive Trap, the Walking Hive has no strengths but is weak to fire with resistance of -40 and decay with a resistance of -20. The Hive Lord, also found in the Enmerkar Forest open world, Forest Hives, and Hive Trap, has a physical resistance of 10 and is weak to fire with a resistance of -50 and decay with a resistance of -20. Finally, we have the Scourge, powerful entities with a shared weakness to lightning. Found in the Enmerkar Forest open world and Cabal of Wind Temple, the Illuminator Horror has no strength and is weak to lightning, with a resistance of -40. The Immaculate roams the Enmerkar Forest open world. It has a physical resistance of 20, but is weak to lightning, with a resistance of -50. Also found in the Cabal of Wind Temple, Shell Horrors have a physical resistance of 30, but are vulnerable to lightning, with a resistance of -50. And that wraps up our guide to the standard enemies of the Enmerkar Forest. Understanding your enemy's strengths and weaknesses can make all the difference in your journey. I hope you found this video helpful. If you are interested in the standard enemies in the starting region, click on the info card for that video. Otherwise, I'll see you later.